If you don't like something about yourself, you can absolutely change it. If you don't like the way you do something or the way you think about something or the way you interact with something, there will for sure be work to change it, but you still can absolutely change it.
Life is a journey, yours starts here. If you're feeling lost, then have no fear. There's always a seat at the tavern, as the legend goes, where the fire's warm and the ale flows cold. You can share your story, whether you're young or old. Tell tales of your glories or sorrows. If things are going great or you're down on your luck, spend too much of the same and you're feeling stuck, share what you know on Gamers Growing Up. GGUP. GGUP. GGUP.
Welcome back to GGUP, the show where we hang out with our guests in a video game of their choosing and discuss their unique journey tackling the main quests of life, finding purpose, building success, and spreading love. This week, we welcome my friend Tommy. Tommy, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here, man. If you could tell our listeners how you know me, your age, what part of the world you're from, and what you do for work.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, once again, my name's Tommy. I'm 26. I'm from the wonderful city of Chicago, born and raised technically in the suburbs, because if you say you're from Chicago, but you're not, you're going to get hate for it. I work in the healthcare industry with cardiovascular monitoring, and I met you through mutual friends, friend group and all that.
Awesome, man. We certainly did. And for those who are listening, what game are we playing right now? You chose web fishing? What is this game, and is it meaningful to you?
Yeah, web fishing is basically like multiplayer Animal Crossing meets just like fishing simulator. Nothing really like intense about it. It's just super laid back. You get to like customize your animal, just run around, catch cool fish. Yeah, it's a little memorable because there was times a whole bunch of my friends and I were just like running around, catching fish, just having a good time. And it's just a really good, just something to have on as you're walking around chatting.
Something in the background while you're hanging out with the mates online. We all love that. And now to dive in a little bit, in your life at this moment, what's most important to you right now?
Honestly, I think it's just working on like bettering myself and just like finding ways that like I can improve and just finding little bits that I could like focus on and like little bits of improvement that I could make, whether that be like day to day or week to week or like grander things that I feel like I could work on myself a bit more about and just tracking my progress and looking back and really realizing where I've come from and how much I've grown.
Oh, I totally feel that, man. It's the level up arc of life. And let's get into how you're going about that. So, Tommy, could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days to make money?
Yeah, I work for a company that partners with different cardiovascular clinics, and I oversee the clinics that we partner with in Illinois because they're based out West Coast, but I'm partnered with the ones in Illinois. I oversee basically the program that manages like blood pressure monitoring and weight scales for heart failure and EKGs and that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Very important stuff. It sounds like a lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah, definitely feels like that day to day.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that day to day? What activities and tasks does your job involve on a day to day? And then on a more like whole week scale, what are some of the things that someone who goes into this job could expect to be doing?
For sure. A lot of the day to day is seeing patients that I've like scheduled appointments for and just having them come in and really explaining what the monitor is that they're going to be getting. And so 90% of the time, it's going to be a blood pressure monitor, explaining what this machine does, showing them how it works. That'll include like physically taking their blood pressure and tracking that. And then broader picture throughout a week, it's like scheduling more appointments, calling more patients, and then just looking at metrics, seeing how many people have enrolled over like the week versus the month, really tracking that, enrollments versus unenrollments, and communicating with higher up staff in the clinic.
Gotcha. So a little bit of communication between team members and making sure things are running smoothly, as well as this really vital work of making sure that people are getting the health care that they need. Can you tell us so far in your career, what have you found the most rewarding and what was the most frustrating? If there's two moments that jump to mind, one for each of those.
I think most rewarding, it's not really so much as the specifics of the job itself. It's more just my ability to handle this job that I was so nervous about getting from the get-go and just like the pressure that I put on myself, but then realizing that I can adapt to it well and just looking back and realizing how much it's come to me and how I can really handle a lot of the work that's set before me now. It's really like the appreciation from patients and like seeing them and talking to them and really getting to know them and that sort of human connection that you make with the people that you're talking to every day. But on the flip side, there's also those days that's, "Oh, this person's really just not in a good mood or not having it, and I'm the person they're absolutely gonna be taking their frustration out on." So it's gonna be a lot of getting screamed at, getting yelled at, and having to roll with it, and just being like, "Yeah, man, that sucks. I'm really sorry that you feel that way," and just taking it on the cheek is what it is.
Ah, the harsh realities of a customer facing job. That's pretty fair. But I'm glad that you're getting that validation that's coming through, really being able to see through a challenge that you faced in your life and knowing that you've made it to the other side and things are working out. That must have been really validating.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you currently working towards in your career? Do you have any goals or things you're aspiring to?
I think it's more so just, like, rising up in this and really establishing myself here because I've had the job for almost 5 months now. And just getting a good foothold and establishing myself with this job and going at it long term and seeing if there's room for upward development and seeing if I can grow further within the company.
Gotcha. And would you say that you are being compensated in a way that allows you to live a comfortable life? And in that same vein, do you feel like you're fairly compensated?
Yeah, I'd say so. Really, after getting this, I've been able to get some of the stress away from that sort of scene of looking for a job because I was in the job search market for 3 years after I graduated.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, really just get a lot of weight off the shoulders and there's a lot of reassurance.
Gotcha. We'll get into the process of you getting that job here in a minute, but I am curious, do you feel like you have a good sense of job security? Is that something that you worry about at all?
For this one, no, I definitely wouldn't think so. I did mention that the company is based out West Coast, and I'm really one of the only
Mhm.
people like around in the area. I do think have some good job security here, but that doesn't mean I'm not really trying hard to do really well as I can for the job.
Making sure that you show your value. And this isn't a podcast that talks too much about AI, but I do like to ask, do you think that AI is going to be threatening this type of job in the near future?
I don't think so because a lot of it is really that human connection of talking to people and like establishing like an appointment with them and seeing them in person and measuring their health and things like that and communicating with them one on one and in person. And I don't really think an AI could do a lot of what I'm doing, mainly because a lot of my clients are very elderly and a lot of them have a very vocal distrust of robots and AI. So
Yeah, that is fair. And do you feel like you fit in with other people in your profession? Are you a typical employee at your work?
yeah, I'd say so. I'd say I'm not on the youngest end, maybe a little bit older than the youngest employees. A lot of the employees are a bit older than I am, but I feel like I'm amongst peers.
Great. Now, I think for you particularly, it's going to be really interesting to hear your coming of age journey and your path to getting this job. Tommy, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, starting from when you're graduating high school, where your sights were set, what you studied in college, and how that then has translated into this process of ending up working in the medical field?
Yeah, absolutely. When I graduated high school, I was still a little bit like on the fence of what I wanted to do and was just picking one direction and rolling with it and seeing where it stuck. Mm,
Yeah, as many do.
I went to school in the city. My original major was in environmental science.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was interesting because there was always that sort of care for the environment and where we're going as people and how we're treating the world. And a lot of that care is still there for sure. And it was really
Yeah.
interesting seeing how my school like handled that and sustainability and like the things that they were doing and what they were teaching. But I guess over time, it never really resonated with me enough to stick with it forever. And definitely a portion of it was that the subject matter was just really depressing.
Oh, yeah. It's true. I felt some of the same in college. This kind of doomer view by these super intelligent scientists that things might be hopeless. Even though they're trying to inspire people to take action, it can get depressing to hear.
Oh, for sure. A lot of the lectures were of the vein of, well, by 2050, this is going to go wrong and this is going to go wrong, and we can only really slow this down. We can't really stop it anymore. A lot of my classmates were hit really hard by it. That sort of stress.
Yeah. And so, did you end up switching schools or switching majors?
Yeah, so I ended up transferring to a different school in the city. Throughout my life, I've always really wanted to do something like creative and artistic. And at that point, I'm like, I'm looking for a new avenue, right? I could probably go into something I'm passionate about, pursue that. And
Hmm.
so I went to school for game design.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Something that hits at home for many of the people listening to this, gamers of the world.
absolutely. And that was a great time. I met a lot of really cool people and some friends that are going to stick with me forever and also got me into long-term Dungeons and Dragons, which I still do now. So I think that was a really good avenue. That was good. The curriculum was it was good, right? There was some cool people and doing some cool curriculum, but after that, I was really stuck in like job search limbo for a little bit until in
Oh, so it was hard to find a job as a game designer in Chicago.
yeah, at least where I was and in my own position and portfolio of work, I
Mhm.
really was not really getting the best success.
Yeah, it's hard to find a job, especially on the entry level these days.
Definitely.
So you said you were searching for 3 years. Did you work any jobs while you were trying to figure that out?
Yeah, there were jobs up and around and sporadic here and there. I did a lot of freelance web design work.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just making websites using like GoDaddy and stuff just to help businesses like push their websites out and make changes and stuff.
And would you say that's using skills from the game design degree?
Yeah, and also Google's just my best friend. So if I encountered something I didn't really notice, don't ever be ashamed to Google something.
YouTube University, a place of learning for many, myself included.
Oh, for sure.
Great way to pick up new skills and upskill.
I was also a forest ranger for a while.
Whoa, forest ranger. And what does that job entail?
I don't want to undersell it a little bit, but it was a lot of just outdoor manual labor and cleaning and just being out in the dirt outside and cleaning up stuff for a while. But there was a lot of tranquility of just being outside, just doing that manual work with your hands, not really being caught up in your head or stuck behind a screen for a while. And it was really nice.
That's cool. Did you work with a lot of other people or was it a lot of just solitude?
A bit of both. I worked for 6 months, and during the summer, it was a lot of people who were off school, college kids who were back from school and needed like a summer job, just working together. But eventually, they all went back, and I was out of school, right? So I kept going on for later into the fall and winter. And eventually, it's just like me and the full time rangers, just a lot of the time one on one every day, and doing that work of driving around, checking the trails. Every once in a while, you'll see things like, oh, there's like an injured animal somewhere. You got to drive it to the animal clinic. It does those days like that, or log splitting, stuff like that.
Say I'm someone who was in a similar situation and needed to find some work, and they're hearing you talk about this. And yeah, that sounds like something that could really be great for my summer. How did you go about getting that job? Do you have any advice for them if they were seeking to get a position like that?
So I found the job through mutual friends. They had said, talked up the job, said it was like fun working there. They realized that I was looking for a job. They're like, "Hey, come with us. Come work at the forest preserve. Work here for the summer while you're job hunting." Took them up on that.
Gotcha. And for that job specifically, would you say that for the people that you saw who were working it as a more long term gig, you said the full time rangers,
Mhm.
did you get a sense of what type of person that would align with, some traits that you should have if you worked that job for a long time?
Yeah, I think the kind of people who are not afraid that if there's a really shitty task ahead of you, just to roll the sleeves up and be like, man, this is going to suck, but oh, here we go, and just like muscle through it a little bit. But it really brought up a very wide collection of characters. There wasn't really like a one type of person really fit for the job. There was really just so many interesting and diverse people who were working the role. People that you'd never really on paper think of as like a forest ranger, but they were all there doing the job really well and were very cool.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear it's really accessible. And it makes sense the type of person maybe who thinks like work is work, just want to get in, get something done, have very tangible progress, and be done with it at the end of the day. Literally kick the mud off your boots, maybe being outside so much.
Yeah, definitely. And there's I think some satisfaction to that and just a nice feeling of when the day is done, you don't really need to think about like deadlines or quotas or like metrics or anything. You can just be like, man, day was done. I'm sore, I'm tired, but like day's done. I don't gotta think about it. I can just turn the brain off when I get back home and sleep for tomorrow. Don't really have to worry about future work.
And so, if we could take that same look at the job you're working right now, it's my understanding that you got that through connections as well.
Yeah, a family member knew somebody who worked this gig here, and that really led me to the interview and got me in the door, basically.
A personal recommendation. So it sounds like your network is really putting in a lot of work for you. Is that something that you do a lot actively to maintain, or it's just these relationships that you continue investing in that are paying dividends?
It's more so the relationships that I have that I've fostered in the past are proving fruitful and shedding light. For the longest time, I really had this idea in my head that any job I find has to be one that I find myself, I interview myself, I do all the work and get the job myself. And from there, I can look back and be proud. Look, I found this. I did this all on my own. I didn't need any help. I didn't have any help. But over time, it really dawned on me. And now I think it's finally settled in with me that you, especially in this day and age, you have to rely on your network and like the people you know and the connections you have. Like, sure, you can absolutely just try to find something completely on your own, but it's going to be just so much harder if you don't consider all the avenues that you have through your connections.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of the modern job market is just like dating. It seems like you have so many options because you're on the internet, thousands of jobs that maybe you qualify for, but you're competing against so many more people than you ever were before, too. So I think that's definitely some sage advice to not be afraid and not to get in your own way of utilizing your network to the fullest extent that you possibly can. So, looking at the job you're working right now, could you describe for us a type of person that would align with that job? Traits that would be really beneficial to have going into it, that someone might know that this is a good avenue for them? And if there's any traits that you know, hey, if you're like this, you might be pretty miserable here or it might not work out, those as well.
Sure. Very detail oriented, which I say from experience of being a pretty, unfortunately, scatterbrained kind of person who sometimes overlooks the details. So I can speak from the negative that might burn you a little bit, which it has burned me. Very capable to change because one minute your company could be like, hey, this is the new workflow and like work protocol, and you're running that and you have it in your brain. This is how the job works. And then the next week they're like, scrap all of that, scrap literally everything you did. This is the complete new workflow now. And you got to be like, okay.
Oh, and does that happen pretty often?
Yeah, the company I work for, they want their business to grow and like change and adapt. So there's a lot of like trying what works and figuring out things and being like, hey, this is our workflow now. This is how it's working. And maybe something different could come along that produces better results. And they just be like, hey, scrap that, do this now.
Gotcha.
You have to be a pretty personable person because it's really just like a lot of one on one FaceTime every day. And you have to be like, on. You got to bring the energy, bring a lot of like emotion talking to people, really sell it to them, really show them how this works and just connect with these people. And you could be seeing like 13, 14 people just a day, just back to back to back. And just you got to run through that drill and that just talking to them. And you got to bring the social energy. And again, as somebody from experience of being really introverted and really loving my solitude and recharging my social battery away from everyone, it can for sure lead to some social burnout. But I think anybody who can thrive in that social environment could do pretty well.
Gotcha. Man, these conversations are always so interesting for me. Hearing that you see yourself as introverted, I know that you're someone who throws some of the craziest parties and has a really strong group of friends. That's pretty cool to hear that you've managed that while at the same time being self described as so introverted. Do you have any advice for other introverts on how to have such a flourishing social life?
I think the best thing I could recommend, the advice that I could give is recognize the people that don't drain you as much as others, right? Because there's those people that you interact with in your day to day that when you're around them, it's an energy sink, right? You get sunk. But recognizing that group and those people that you're like, I could be around you the entire day and I don't care what goes on, and we could be around doing absolutely nothing or absolutely everything together, and I don't feel bored, I don't feel tired. And that's the people that you want to stick around with.
I think that's some great advice. And jumping in on what you were saying right before it, it sounds to me like the job you're working right now might be a really good place for someone with some experience in maybe sales or customer service, like retail, because it sounds like there's a lot of transferable skills there. Dealing with customers and almost the way you describe it, it sounds like you're doing a bit of sales work, trying to convince them to go with a certain product. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah, that sales aspect is totally there, especially when it comes to calling people and trying to get them along the idea of starting with this monitoring here. It could sometimes lead to just some very serious cold calling and having to bring it up to them and basically, essentially sell it to them, right? And letting them know the benefits and what they get from doing this and how it could positively impact their health and that kind of thing, and really highlighting those key points for them.
How do you guys go about getting clients? Is it really just you're trying to find people you think might benefit from it, or are they getting recommended from doctors? What does that client acquisition process look like, and how involved in that are you?
It really is, or a majority of it is doctors are recognizing patients that really need it, that have hypertension, and are recognizing, like, hey, this is going to be a good program they should start with. And then they'll let me know and they'll schedule the patient for me and be like, hey, this is when they're coming in for the visit. Go ahead and see them. Sure. But a lot of it is also
Gotcha.
kind of looking in the medical records, seeing the patients who like have those diagnoses, but haven't really been scheduled by a doctor or from the scheduling team, and looking into it myself, which could include calling that patient, being like, hey, you're eligible. Let's talk about it. Let's see if it's something that works for you. Communicate with the doctor and see if it's something, that you want.
Cool, man. Now, if you'll humor me to get a little esoterical here, a little heady, if we could talk a little bit about how your personality has evolved over this journey as you've had a lot of courage to realize this one college and major are not for me. I'm going to try going over here. All right, this really aligns with me, but the work isn't there. And having the humility to, again, try something new and keep putting yourself out there throughout that whole journey. How has your personality changed? Do you think that you had some milestones or some really pivotal moments that brought you from a teenage headspace into wherever you're at now, a more adult working professional headspace?
Yeah, I would say that my personality has really gone through a lot of ups and downs. When I was a kid, I was very bombastic, very high energy, very loud, very noisy, always really trying to make anybody laugh no matter what I do or anything I think could get a laugh. I'd throw out 40 jokes in a row, 40 attempts at jokes in a row that would get everyone basically really annoyed just in the pursuit of one laugh from somebody. And I think that's recognition that I was annoying people, or at least in my brain I was, really led me to shut down, like, in high school and become a very quiet, standoffish, introverted person and ran with that headspace for a long time. But it was in college and sort of the aftermath of that that I recognized that you can find people who, like, respect you and love you and want to be around you, and you can work on yourself and get yourself to a point that you want to be, and that you don't have to be in a personality space that you dislike, essentially. I think all that is to say that I shut down and it was in an area that I didn't enjoy, and I looked at myself and saw a personality that I wanted to have and took the steps
Mhm.
to adapt and change to get it, right? And now I'm at a point where I think I'm proud of myself and happy with my mental health, where I'm at. And I think the stability of having people around me and family that love me and friends that care about me and what position that I'm content in and safe in, that has gotten me to a good point right now.
That's awesome, man. And if we can dig a layer deeper into that, from going through that process, a really self aware moment of my personality isn't where I want it to be. And I think that's something that a lot of people, especially in this phase of life, can really relate to. You know, you kind of end up with this personality that's a mixture of the people that have been around you in your formative years and what your friends thought were funny as you were growing up and what pop culture is telling you should or shouldn't be like, depending if you're trying to shape yourself subconsciously towards some sort of archetype. But this like passive approach doesn't always lead you to the personality of who you want to be. And I think that it really is this phase of life where you start to have a lot more agency and make it a lot more of a conscious effort to go about interacting with the world and with the people you care about in a very intentional way. So, if you have any advice of steps that you took or ways of thinking, frameworks, things that you did to analyze yourself and push yourself forward towards this personality that you have now, that, I mean, from my own perception of you, I would say as a mixture of the two, you are this really fun, bombastic guy who also at the same time has this introverted side of you. And you've married the two of those together to create the person you want to be. How did you go about that? Any advice?
Yeah, you hit it on the nail on the head really at the end there. It's looking at yourself and seeing the person that you want to be and finding the steps that it takes to get there. Because a lot of it is really taking the time to reflect on yourself and looking inwardly. It's a lot of introspection and looking who you are as a person and what you're about, and understanding the idea that if you don't like something about yourself, you can absolutely change it. If you don't like the way you do something or the way you think about something or the way you interact with something, there will for sure be work to change it, but you still can absolutely change it. And what helped me was really having a dialogue with myself and thinking, like, I want to be the kind of person that thinks X, or I want to be the kind of person that doesn't think X or doesn't assume this. A lot of it was really working on my mental state and like my mental well-being, but it was that idea of I want to be the kind of person that does this. And if you just tell yourself that and really work on it and start believing that eventually you will become that person or that you are that person currently, that'll absolutely show dividends, like in how you behave and how you think. And you can totally just adapt and change like your personality and the way you interact and think.
Now, I'm sure a lot of that process for you was very personal things that you might not want to share, but I am curious if there's something maybe that's not as deep, but still that we could look at as an example. So I know if we get too abstract, people might think, okay, that sounds great, but what does it really look like for someone who's struggling to do the same thing that you are? Is there an aspect of yourself that you could walk us through what that process was like for you?
Yeah, I'm one of the kind of person who looks at the silver lining in like a lot of things. I didn't want to be wallowing on things that were sad or really locked in on the things that those negative emotions that could really dominate your day or could really commandeer your thought space. I wanted to
Hmm.
get myself out of a funk that I was in, and I wanted to become the kind of person that can see just really the beauty in all things and really recognize the wonderful aspects of a day to day. And so what I did was I started something called the joy list. It was a daily little just like journal on my phone where I would write down anything, literally anything that brought out like a positive emotion or like a positive thought or anything that I liked. I would just mark them down as like a bulleted list. So it's like I ate a cookie. I saw a cool bird. The way that like the sunshine was like going through the window was pretty interesting. Or there was a little bit of fog and I liked that. Just like writing that down every single day and sticking with it. It helps you think more and notice things that bring you joy versus it locking in on the things that make you sad. And it really changed how I focus on my day to day. Because at that point I was looking for things to be happy about versus focusing on things to be sad about. And I think just last week I crossed over a full year of doing that every single day. So I think just sticking with that has really gotten me to the point where I'm now just focusing on things where I'm like, yeah, even if today was shitty, even if it was like a really sad day, there were still things within it that were nice that I appreciated.
The joy list. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it really aligns quite well and is a very tangible example of something that I've been talking about quite a bit on the show with our guests. This idea of being mindful of the things that are going well in your life and appreciating them. I think that's something that, especially for people going through this phase of life, but also just in general in society, we're in this constant looking to others, looking to things that I don't have yet. I need this. I haven't done that yet. I want this. I need that. Like this constant looking outwards and trying to bring in really has a way to put you down and to distance you from what you already have. So the joy list, taking time each day to appreciate, and I'm sure it's not a lot of time, right? Ultimately, it's a task you have to do, but what would you say, a couple minutes a day?
Oh, like right before bed, as I'm going to bed, I just reflect on the day, think about some like key points, and over the course of maybe a couple minutes, I just jot down some things that I enjoyed. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really similar to where I've talked about prayer near the end of the day. Here is something for if that doesn't align with you, the joy list. What a wonderful thing. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Now, this is gamers growing up, and I do like to ask, do you think from your favorite video games or other video games you've played, board games, card games, any of the gaming things in your life, have they taught you skills that you use in other parts of your life?
I think looking at that, I think the one thing that really comes to mind is Dungeons and Dragons, more so how I got into playing Dungeons and Dragons. I had just transferred to this new college, right? I just started game design. It was something I was passionate about and excited to start, but I was new into this new school year. I didn't really know anybody and I was very nervous about meeting people or how I would make friends or find people that could accept me and all those thoughts that I'm sure many people have of transferring. And something that was in the back of my brain was like I had never played D&D before and I really wanted to. And as I'm sure many people, listening are like, oh, yeah, I want to play, but I just don't know the people to play with. I don't have a group or anything like that. I was right in that area too. But I told myself that when I transferred, I wanted to talk to somebody new, at least like every class or every other class, talk to somebody and then at least say hi or strike up a conversation or get myself out there. And I was like, I want to get myself out there. I want to meet new people. I want to actually take the step to introduce myself first rather than just shrinking up in the back. But like my first class, we were all getting ready, and then this one guy stands up. He's like, hi, how's it going? Doing icebreaker stuff, telling facts about himself. And then he's like, oh, I've also been a DM for a Dungeons and Dragons group for the last 3 years. So if you guys like ever want to play a game, hit me up. I'll play a game. I'm like, that's the guy. That's the guy right there. I want to go talk to that guy. So I made the conscious effort to walk up to him after that class and be like, hey man, I want to play D&D. Let's get a group going. Let's not wishy-wash it. Let's just get it going. Let's get people and start a group. And yeah, I think we've been playing for gosh, like 7 years now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And I know I was lucky enough to jump in for one game earlier this year. And what a great group of guys. That's really a fun group.
Yeah, and then really just people that I wanna hang with and be around just for forever, honestly. They're so cool, and it's really just a really nice group of people who can, like, support me, a good community, and I think a lot of that started just from taking the effort to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna walk up to you and talk to you and get myself out there," and I think that really helps a lot in my job and in my life, just swelling and being like, "Hey, nothing's gonna happen unless I take the initiative to talk or initiate this dialogue," and that's really helped me out so much in, like, my personal life and my professional life, just being the first one to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna open this up, initiate this contact."
Yeah, I can really relate to that. I had a very similar experience going into college. I had felt like the only friends I had in high school were people that were in groups with activities that I had been doing. So I knew the music and theater kids. I had a few friends here and there besides that, but I felt like looking at the graduating class, I didn't really know a whole lot of people that well. And when I went into college, I made that conscious effort to go out there and try and just say hi to everybody, introduce myself, have a conversation. And I ended up doing that with just about everyone in the 100 people in my degree that year. And it paid dividends so much. I think that being somebody that could then connect to other people only because I had introduced myself, not even really hung out with a lot of these people, it's an awesome position to put yourself in, even if it is pretty scary. And wild to think that one of the biggest skills you've gained is in the pursuit of a game, not even playing it per se, but like seeking out that social connection. And just to speak a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons, because I would say for me, it's really taught me how to communicate and empathize on another level that I don't think you really get in many other ways of interaction. You're putting yourself in the mindset of a different person, a character, and you're role playing and relating to all of these other characters that other people come up with. And it teaches you to think on your feet and be able to think really creatively, really fast. Do you feel some similar things coming from Dungeons and Dragons? Some skills like that?
Absolutely, yeah. You nailed everything. It really is that skill to put yourself in the mindset of a completely different person is really important because it helps you relate to them and their trials and tribulations and think just in the shoes of somebody else, which absolutely can pivot into the real world and how you empathize with other people. It's good about teaching community and like working as a group and like recognizing strengths and flaws and letting other people be emotional and be there for them, even if it's through the lens of a game. It's really empowering to be like, hey, I'm with you, I'm on your team. We're gonna get through this obstacle together and come out of it on the other side as like better, stronger people. And that will absolutely foster better relationships among the people at the game. And it honestly, it helps just with like ad-libbing, really, because in my
Yeah.
eternal pursuit of finding ways to make other people laugh because that little child part of me is never truly gone. It absolutely has increased just other ways to spin up stuff on the fly, which I'm happy for.
For sure. I think that Dungeons and Dragons is a funny man's paradise. It really gives you a lot of space to develop those skills. I know the term heroes is thrown around, but more in general, just people or concepts that you find inspirational. So, be they fictional or people you know in your real life, people you know from broader culture, where do you draw inspiration from?
I think my biggest source of inspiration, whether it be in my day to day, if I recognize it, or if it's in like a piece of media that I experience and I see this sort of similar idea in, it's this sort of idea and character force of somebody that kind of just keeps walking right on the days that may be rough, that may be tough. You just keep walking, keep making progress, keep going forward. And I know people in like my life who do that and through positions that are rough now, but really just kind of work for it and work hard for it and get to a point that you're happy with later on. And that's empowering and motivational to see. And if it's just watching like a show or like an anime or a game of somebody who's like, yeah, shit sucks now, but I'm just going to keep one step at a time walking up that mountain, that bit of progress is always really empowering for me to see.
For sure. This indomitable spirit, that fortitude that some characters are able to exude. This, I'm going to keep going, keep trucking along, regardless of what life throws at me. Is there a certain character that really epitomizes that for you?
Yeah. I think I always eventually come around to this one character. It's from an anime called Haikyuu, if you're familiar.
Oh, the sports one, that's volleyball, right?
It is, yeah. There's a guy on their team. His name is Tanaka. He is not one of the main characters, but he's not the highlighted protagonists or anything. He's not like the freshmen. He's not the seniors. He's like a middle of the pack dude.
Hmm.
And there's one episode where he's really not playing well and he's beating himself up and he has this sort of internal dialogue with himself. And he has this sort of monologue of, hey, I try to always stay positive and not really let the world get the best of me, but every so often the cracks form and I do get in on myself and think down on myself. And he has this dialogue where he calls himself Mr. Average. He says, "Hey, Mr. Average, do you really have the time to be looking down right now?" When it's that idea of, hey, there's time to wallow in self-pity, but instead of using that time to do that, you can just use that time just to keep walking and overcome that failure and that idea of just walking back up the mountain versus wallowing. And every so often, I just think of the idea of Mr. Average, where it's like, hey, man, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I might not be amazing, I might not be the pinnacle of anything, but if I just put in the work to get to a good spot, then I can overcome anything, despite being quote unquote average.
Yeah, really keeping that perspective that the greatest of anything, no matter what sport or activity or profession you're in, everybody starts somewhere. And not putting yourself down for not having lived up to where you want to be yet, but having the determination to push forward. Would you say that you're someone who is driven by determination or motivation?
I guess more so determination, because I oftentimes find myself lacking the motivation to do a lot of things, to
Yeah.
pursue the things that I want to get better at, to really get myself to a point that I'm proud of. Or I often find myself stricken with imposter syndrome or making up excuses to like not go down a path that I want to or better myself in certain areas. Even to this day, I find myself shirking away from things that I down the line would love to do, but I'm scared to start now. But I think even if you're not motivated, still just taking a step is better than taking no step. So I think just finding that energy to, I know you're not motivated, but still just move a little bit forward and practice a little bit is still going to work out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's the most surefire way to make sure that you don't plateau and to push through some of life's hardest moments. I know it helps me academically and personally, just all across the board, doing things from a sense of determination rather than waiting for motivation to come by will serve you well. Now, to wrap up this section of the conversation, I like to ask everybody, have you ever felt pressure to fill some type of predefined role in society? And has that changed as you've gotten older or not really something that you worry about?
Yeah, I'd say that I have. I'd say that there was always this sort of pressure to find a role that was, I don't want to use the phrase cookie cutter 'cause it's a bit demeaning, but it's a very common position of the people around me, like the life that I'm in, finding like a similar job. And growing up, I was like, no, I want to do something that's breaking the mold and doing something different than that. And I want to go out and do something that I'm passionate about and in a space that I'm passionate about and follow my dreams and that kind of thing. I think
Hmm.
if I were younger, I would be disappointed at the position I'm at now, but there's something to be said about finding space and a role that provides you a lot of safety and comfortability. And roles, I guess, are there for a reason. Archetypes of a steady job and steady career and life are there for a reason because people recognize that they'll provide you with a lot less volatile of a life situation. Because I think if I went down this idea of breaking the mold like I wanted to when I was younger, it would lead me to very hesitant, be very unsure situations of like, how am I going to get a career? How am I going to get a life? Or how am I going to get comfortable and secure where I am versus recognizing the role that's there and then just realizing that, yeah, at least for now, I'm okay with the settling comfortability and security that I'm at, but I could maybe break that role in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're really living out your philosophy of staying determined and making sure that you're making progress, even if it is adjacent to where you want to go rather than directly on the path you envisioned. Do you have any idea of big aspirations if things work out how you want, where you'd like to see things progress?
I think I'll never ever shake that like deep innate desire to be an artist, even though I really don't have a lot of artistic skill or talent versus the people around me who I've met so many phenomenal artists and they can make
Hmm.
just the best artwork. And there's a lot of me really Sisyphus pushing up that boulder of trying to start up and work on it again just to see the training not work out or like my ability to latch onto art fundamentals crumble away and I'm back down at the bottom and I'm in my own head and I'm really just not motivated to continue again and I don't want to think about starting it because then I get in my own mental battle and I'm very scared to work on it again or keep focusing on it. But that's my forever dream. It's
Yeah.
maybe it might not be a career or anything about that, which is something that I had to have a good conversation about, which is it's probably not going to be like my full-time career. And there are other things
Hmm.
I'm passionate about, but at the end of the day, there's just that like deep-seated gnawing desire aspire to be someone who can just create fantastic pieces of art that just move a lot of people.
Wow. I have to say, I really hope that in whatever form the realization of that dream comes about, I really hope that it does. And I'm confident that it will, knowing you.
Oh, thank you.
If you haven't drank any water recently, here's your hydration reminder because it's sponsor time. Have you ever noticed how every guest on this show sounds like they're using high quality mics? But how's that possible, you might ask? I don't have a soundproofed recording studio with $1,000 recording equipment. Most of the guests on this show don't even shoot the video in the same town as me, let alone the same room. What if I told you that some guests have even joined from their phones and still sound great? What's the secret? I'm no master audio engineer, but my friends at Riverside.fm are. They've taken the headache out of recording remotely and put the power into your hands so that anyone, anywhere can sound great. Their platform has AI-powered voice processing that gives your audio the magic it deserves. While they're not a sponsor of this podcast yet, I'd sure like them to be. Riverside.fm makes the show possible, and if you'd like to see them support GGUP, please tag them and let them know in the comments. Your voice has power, and securing sponsorships will help me ensure this podcast continues on for a long time to come. Thank you, Riverside.fm, for the wonderful audio processing tools. Are you enjoying the show? Do you want to let your friends know that this is your new favorite podcast? You should head on over to the official GGUP merch store and get that legendary loot. Get dripped out, stylish shirts, hats, and even stickers. There are over 100 designs created by yours truly, and you can get them all on all kinds of things. Click the link in the description to check out the merch store today. Now, back to the episode. So now, Tommy, if we could move the conversation a little bit to talk about the relationships and the people in your life, I'd like to get a sense of where everybody is meeting their friends. Because it is getting harder and harder to stay connected. And it's not necessarily that people aren't forming these relationships like they used to, but I think that they're going about it in new ways with the internet and the way that it's changed human interaction. So if you could break it down for us into percentages, where are the areas of life where your friends, your close friends have come from? So looking at people you know from growing up, people that you met in college, people that you've met at work, and people that you've met more generally as an adult just through life. If you could break those categories down into rough percentages of the people that you're close with, where are your friends coming from?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a good percentage of people that I've met through school. Thinking about the ones that are like around me now in my life now, I'd say maybe like a 20% of my friends are from school, maybe 30%, because there's that shared experience of being in the same environment, seeing somebody over and over that could foster friendship. And after being around with somebody, you can recognize similar traits that make them want to be your friend or you want to be their friend.
Okay.
And a lot of it, honestly, at least for me, was out of school and finding other people that I think were interesting because a lot of people could be in the headspace of, man, once I'm out of school, I'm not going to find people to hang out with. I'm not going to find friends. And at least in my experience, it was meeting other people that knew a friend that I met at school, but it was just through that I met other people. And so I guess thinking more about it, it was friend of a school friend. So it might just be all linked to school friends. But there was that sort of, after I was done with school, I met this group of people that I wanted to interact with. And I wanted to become friends with, and it took the initiative to become friends with. So that's the friend group that I have now, and it's the friend group that I met you with.
Very true.
So I'd say that's the other like 50%, and then the final 20 is just in the other day-to-day of like family and like extended family and like family friends, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So really not a whole lot of turnover from work.
At least in my current space, no, not really. There's some great people that I work with, and I'm definitely chatty and on good terms with and vibe very well with. But in terms of friends that I'd like to stick around with, I would say personally, no.
Okay. Totally fair. And who do you game with?
Yeah, that same D&D group, we just all hang out together because for the longest time I was like, man, I just want that kind of group that we can just at any night hop on Discord and just start games going, start watching stuff, and just have that interaction with friends. Just Seinfeld, keep the door open, just walk on in, hang out whenever. And then I saw this group of people doing that. And I'm like, man, I want that. I want to be a part of that. I want to be in that environment. I want to have that sort of experience. And thankfully it has been reciprocated, and I'm with that group now and I have that. So at any point we can just be like, hey, game time, and then yeah, go.
Yeah, I have to say, it is really awesome having a friend group that is both online present and in person present. I think it's really fun to have those meetups, get to see everybody in person, but then this accessibility of your friends of any time of the day, someone's usually around to get to hang out with really helps you to feel connected, I've found.
Absolutely. And that's not to say anything wrong about online friendships, because I've always absolutely had friendships that were only online that I think are just as strong, if not stronger, than in person friendships. But there's something also nice about being in person with those people that you are on Discord with all the time.
Yeah, I really like the comparison you made to the Seinfeld open door because that's how I felt a group of friends that I got adopted into. I was the young freshman. They were all a year older than me in college when I was in the dorms, and they all were dorming together. And I got placed like right in the middle of them. And that feeling of like, open door, come on in. It really does translate quite well to Discord community or gaming groups online of friends where you feel like your friends are always around. And it's something really powerful.
Oh yeah, for sure. And honestly, that metaphor works for me as well because that college friend who had that friend group that I then joined, I met that college friend literally because I had my college dorm room open, like the door was unlocked, and he just walked in, and then we just became friends from that.
That's wild.
Yeah, he's like, "Can I hang out?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then he stuck around, and he just never left, and then we just became friends.
A note of advice, literally keeping your door open, but also metaphorically
Yeah,
keeping yourself open to new relationships.
for sure.
And so we've heard about some of your personal relationships, but talking a little bit more professionally here, we've heard that your network is quite well through personal connections. What do you think about the more professional networking? Do you do a lot to maintain your professional network? And do you think it's something that is very important for someone in your current field?
Yeah, yes to both. I think, especially in my like position and in my job, I think it's important to facilitate really good relationships with not only the people that I work with, but also the people at the clinic that I'm working at. Just making sure that I'm a good employee and like a good person around them, that I'm recognizing the state that I'm in and the station that I'm at, and always being around to be a positive person, positive environment, and help foster better relationships with people I'm working with, the people I'm working under, and always just, at least in my end, giving off just a positive air. And I think that helps a lot.
I'm sure it does. And you've spoken a little bit about having this conscious, positive mindset that you bring to work, being on, as you put it, as well as pushing yourself to engage even when you don't feel inclined to, this determination to push forward. For someone who really finds these professional relationships to be intimidating, maybe they're an introvert, maybe they just don't quite feel like they have the skill set yet to interact in what is a pretty foreign environment from the rest of more personal life. There's a certain set of rules that you need to engage by in order to come across as professional. Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, I think the best advice that I can give is really just believe in yourself and recognize that like you got this position, which means, that the people who hired you recognized, something in you, even if you can't see it yourself. They recognize that you are good for the job, and you should like look on that victory and realize that, yeah, I can do this job. And even if it seems intimidating, which there's always still parts of my job that seem intimidating. Don't get me wrong. Every day is a new thing of like, oh man, I can't do this. Oh man, I'm worried about this. But just starting it and taking that step forward and recognizing that it might seem intimidating, it might seem daunting, but once you start it, you'll see that, oh, I can do this. And after you do it once, you're like, maybe, yeah, I can do it a second time. And that leads to, I can do it a fourth, fifth, 10th time. And then all of a sudden you're comfortable. That's at least what I found.
For sure. How does your job affect your relationships? Would you say that you have enough space in your life to achieve this work life balance? Or do you find your professional life bleeding into your personal time?
I've definitely had jokes thrown at me that I have way more of a bedtime, which for sure, when I didn't have the job, it was game until 3 a.m., but now it's me in bed at 10 o'clock. So I think a little bit, but I think something that I had to understand was that, like, if I want to have a good work life balance, or at least have a good social life, it's the idea that, like, yeah, I absolutely can go out, but I'm just gonna be tired and not really suck it up, but it's just the idea of, yeah, I will be tired, and if I want to go hang out, then it might be a little bit tired the next day. But I think I'm, for now, doing what I can to facilitate a good work-life balance, but there's always something to be said about recognizing those days where it's like, hey, no, I would love to hang out with people, I'd love to go out, but I need my sleep. I need time to recharge from the day. I would love to hang out, but I need to focus on my mental and physical well-being. So it's thinking about both.
Yeah, I think that being the steward of your own wellness is one of the trickiest things because you're fighting really with yourself. You want to go out, you want to have fun. I know I've been in that same situation where you're really wagering your own vitality against fun experiences. And there's no one objectively right or wrong answer. It's just trying to find a balance, like you said, not going out every night and then running yourself ragged, but also not being so focused on things that you miss out on living life. Really well said.
Thank you.
So now, Tommy, if we can talk about your health and well-being for a little bit, imagine if you had a health bar out of 100. And 100 is not just taking into consideration your physical health, but also your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your overall sense of well-being. If you could give us a number out of 100, where's your health bar at right now?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing chunking down my health bar right now would just be the slow creep of time and the hand of age really wearing at me. So I think if I had to put a number on it, I'd say 80.
Okay, 80. That's pretty good. That's still well up there near max. So you say that time is giving you some damage. What's bringing you healing?
If I could really think about it and register the benefits of it, I'd say I put in a lot of effort over, especially the last year, but over a lot of time of bolstering my own mental well being and emotional health and counteracting any sort of negative mental traits and just focusing on inward growth. And I feel like that stands to help a lot in this metric here. But on the flip side, there are absolutely like days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I slept on my shoulder a little bit weird and now it's going to hurt for 2 weeks because I'm 26 and I can't sleep on my shoulder the way I used to and now I'm in pain. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of practices I think that are good for maintaining a good mental outlook and like a positive mental space that I think a lot of people could benefit from.
Yeah. If you want to talk about, you've already shared some of those, like the joy list, anything that you do on a daily basis, or even just in general that you keep a mindful intention to pursue, whether it be your physical or your mental health or your emotional well being. Yeah. If you want to share any of those practices.
Sure. First and foremost, I think anybody and everybody will get a good experience out of therapy. I've been to therapy a good number of times and I absolutely love it and I love the benefits of it. And I think every person should go to a therapist and experience that because it helps out so much.
True.
It absolutely helps inward momentum, outward momentum. It's really helped me when I'm like feeling dark. And it's not really a regular routine anymore, but I absolutely will still hit up my therapist when I'm like feeling a little bit dark or feeling a little bit anxious. But we've definitely had a lot of good progress on working on my mental state because I consider myself like a very anxious person. And it's very easy for me to get swept up in unrealistic, out there thoughts, but they really take over and like co opt my mental state. And I could potentially see myself spiraling. But I really feel like I'm at a good spot where I can counteract any of those bad emotions or bad moods, things like that. But other things that are good for physical and mental health, something that I found was pretty nice was every day when I wake up, I do 20 push ups. And then when I go to bed, I do 20 sit ups, where it might start out difficult at the beginning, but over time, you'll find that it actually gets really easy to do. And you'll find yourself doing them really well. And you find that it's actually easy to do push ups now, which I discovered. And I think there's something nice about that sort of physical interaction of just like there's that immediate physical reaction of maybe a week ago you couldn't really do 3, but now you can do 15 really easily. And it's that immediate recognition of, wow, look at that progress. Whereas a lot of maybe things in like your job or your hobbies that you want to get better at, that progress is a bit ephemeral. It's a bit ethereal. It doesn't really show itself very well. But recognizing that physical and immediate progress has been really good about helping with my confidence and self image and keeping good habits and continuing good practices.
Wow, and what an attainable number. Like just 20 and 20, not spending large amounts of your day working out. I definitely see you as someone who's pretty fit. And to hear that something like that is helping you maintain it, it's really inspiring for me. I think I'm going to start doing the same. That's a totally achievable number. It's not hundreds.
Yeah, it's no one punch man. It's no running kilometers and doing thousands of push ups and sit ups, but it's back to that sort of mindset of, hey, any progress is good progress. And if you do 20 a day over like every day a year, it's way better than doing nothing.
For real. And if we could circle back to therapy just for a moment, did you feel any apprehension first going into it? Because I know that when I did, I had to fight with my pride a little bit in order to accept that therapy might be something that I needed. And I think that a lot of young men, especially in America these days, have this feeling that society and culture give you. I know that things are opening up a little bit, but there is still this feeling of like therapy is for people who are struggling or who are weak And it's really not that at all. But I know that I personally struggled with that feeling and to get over myself a little bit to get some of the help that I needed. Did you feel that at all?
I totally get that. I totally get that mindset. Me personally, I personally did not think that or have that struggle as I approached therapy. I think the way that I saw it was more so along the lines of, hey, my mental state is a little bit sick. I'm gonna go to the doctor who's gonna prescribe something or find a way to patch me up and get me better. This person is a trained medical professional. They're going to help me with this. They're going to find ways that I can fix the wound, right, or fix the ailment. And then it's more of that idea of self betterment where it's, oh, this is the person who will help me attain that better state that I want to be in. Sure. But that's definitely something that she and I have both talked about, chatted about, is the idea, especially in this Western society, of men recognizing, like, no, I don't want to go to somebody about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to deal with it myself. I'm just going to bury it down and hopefully it goes away, which I personally don't think is that healthy of a workaround. I think it's definitely important to work things out and recognize the root of problems and a lot of bad mental states so that you can get through them, grow as a person, and so that they don't rear their head later on down in your life and potentially impact your personal or professional relationships.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really interesting way to put it and to frame it. You hurt your tooth, you go to the dentist. Something's going wrong with your mind, you go to the mind doctor, really.
Yeah.
And you go to the specialist that can help you in the ways that you need.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really, at least the way I see it, I don't really see it as being weak or anything. It really is just, oh, this is the person who went to school for this field of medicine, and this is just like to fix the sprained brain.
For real. And how would you say your hobbies are impacting your overall wellness? It sounds like you really get a lot of joy and healing from them.
Yeah, for sure. There are absolutely like days when like I'm drained or I'm out of it and I'm realizing that, man, even like the hobbies aren't really like doing it for me or anything like that. For sure, they're keeping me in a good spot. They're things that I really enjoy. Like I'm always gonna enjoy gaming and stuff like that. And a new game comes around, I'm excited for it and gonna be playing that, and that keeps me in a good spot. It keeps me happy. I think it's so important for people to hold on to their hobbies because it's this always this race to leap into a full-time professional environment, but that's could potentially overwhelm your schedule and not leave a lot of time for your hobbies. But I think hobbies and just that ability to unwind is so important for your just overall well-being in general. And I think it's really important to prioritize time for your hobbies.
Yeah, for sure. And they help keep you interesting. I think that having hobbies is another avenue to connect with people. And especially if you're not finding those fulfilling, real and deep connections through your professional life, hobbies are a great avenue to continue keeping your horizons broad. Are you doing anything else? You've already talked a little bit about what you're doing to maintain your physical well being, the steps you've taken and are still taking to maintain your mental well being and emotional well being. Is there anything else that you want to share you've been doing before we move on?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that has helped me as an anxious person who tends to let these impulsive, sudden thoughts and fears pop up and dwell in my brain is a phrase that I'm still working on coining a good term for, but it's something that I like to call emotional vampires. It's the idea that as vampires are creatures that have to be let in to a building so that they can enter inside. But just if you do that, vampire's it's gonna run amok. It's gonna do a lot of damage. It's gonna wreck house if it is allowed inside. And just like that, a lot of negative emotions are a lot like vampires. They'll walk by, they'll walk down the street, they'll try to get into your house, and if you let them in, yeah, they're gonna do a lot of damage. They're gonna wreck you up and leave you in a not good space than when they found you, and they'll leave you in a pretty broken up area. But if you just hold strong, say no, and let them pass over you and pass by and walk away, I think that's really important and really helpful is to not dwell on those negative emotions. But also recognizing that as a human being, there's nothing wrong with those emotions coming up. There's nothing wrong with anger or jealousy or sadness or a depressive mindset to come about because you're a human being and those emotions do come up. But what's important is not letting them in and not acting on them. You let them show up, run their course, and leave. And you don't facilitate them, you don't bring them in, and you don't put any action to it. And I think that's helped me out so much because I've had jealous, angry, and sad thoughts pop up, but I just let them wash over and go away. And I think that has helped my mental state a good deal.
Yeah, I know that I've really connected with someone, like a speaker online, when I was going through my own really valley of journey with this. And they phrased it as you are not the storm that you're caught in. It will eventually pass. and keeping that mindset of not inviting these bad emotions in. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. No, I do have to say, I'm a little annoyed you stole my own phrase. I've never shared this with anybody, but I really think of people sometimes as emotional vampires. So it's wild for you to bring
Oh
that
my
up.
gosh.
I have definitely had the thought of, hey, this person, like I care about them or I want to keep interacting with them or whatever have you be, but that they're an emotional vampire or like a vampire of energy that being
Sure.
around them, all they want to talk about is the things that are going wrong in life, or they want to really bring the mood down and pull you down with them. It's not someone reaching for a helping hand to be pulled up and uplifted, but just someone who's in this headspace where they want to wallow and being conscious with myself of, okay, every time I hang out with this person, I walk away feeling hollow or drained or sad or down. And is that really the type of relationship that I want, like really active in my life and deprioritizing these emotional vampires as people? So I think it's a really powerful concept, especially since it applies both to emotions and people.
Yeah.
Just wanted to talk about that a little bit. That's wild.
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting trains of thought.
All right, so Tommy, now I would like to transition the conversation a little bit to talking about the idea of satisfaction with your life, fulfillment. And this is going to be the last number I ask you for. I give it to you up front so you could start thinking of a number out of 100, how fulfilled and satisfied you feel with life in this moment. But before we get there, I'd like to ask you, in your view, what are the criteria of a happy, fulfilling life? What are the things that a life needs to Tommy right now to be happy and fulfilling?
And I think that's the universal question. It's always going to be changing and adapting, but at the end of the day, it's what exists to facilitate a happy or fulfilled life. I think that people are always going to be chasing that. And I think even my description that I give now is not going to be the same one that I give maybe 5 years from now. I think the most important things for me are people that I'm around who love me and care about me and respect me and help me achieve my dreams and help me feel safe. I think having a sense of accomplishment and security of what I've done and where I've been, I think is good and helpful. I think being able to look back at like the steps I've taken and the things I've done and where I am now is important to feeling satisfaction in my life and comparing myself to where I was before to where I am now. To explore my hobbies and my dreams, I think is also really important. I think an avenue to explore that is really beneficial to a good life. And I think lastly, the ability to grow and change and better yourself, I think helps a lot to adding towards the sense of satisfaction and happiness in one's life. When you can take a good look at yourself in the mirror and be like, wow, I've done this, I've achieved this, I've worked on this, and this is where I am now.
Doing what it takes to make sure you keep progressing and showing up for those you care about. Wonderful things. And if you gave us a number out of 100 right now, how satisfied would you say that you are with life?
I'd say around 70, 70, 75.
Solid.
I think just always leaving that avenue open for more good things in my life and more satisfaction I think is important too, because the last thing you want is to say you're at 100, because at that point it's what else is there to work on? What else is there to be excited for? Because if you're already at 100, then you have everything.
Yeah. Very true. I think that's a good perspective to hold. And are you doing anything specifically for this idea of fulfillment to continue progressing and working towards that? You've talked about working on yourself and making sure you're seeing this constant progression. That seems like a very direct application to this. Anything besides that?
At the end of the day, and sort of the big picture of it all, is I want to get myself to be the kind of person that I like to be with and I like to be around and that I'm proud of and that I enjoy. Because at the end of the day, you're the person that you're going to be around with for the longest, right? For your entire life, it's going to be you that you're going to be around. So if it's possible, really changing yourself and adapting yourself to be a person that you like and that you like to be around and that you're proud of is the end goal for me.
Well, I've got to say, you don't find yourself on my list of good personal friends without being someone I enjoy being around. So, if my perspective is any metric, I think you're doing great on that. And where do
Thank
you
you.
draw motivation for that? What keeps you? Because that's not a simple, quick fix. It's a lifelong journey of continuing to be intentional about how you show up in the world. Where do you draw the motivation to not give up and say, this is good enough?
I think it's being able to recognize that I have a really good support system, that I have people who will always be there for me and love me and help me even if I do stumble. So there's always going to be that net that if I do slip, there's going to be people who will have my back and help me back up. But I think something that also helps is that the idea that I do slip a little bit, if I do fall a little bit, that's not a full reset. It's not tumbling all the way down to the bottom. It's not erasing all of the progress that I've made. So if I'm doing really well and I have maybe like a little bit of time where it's not the best or it's slipping a little bit, that doesn't mean I haven't already done a lot of good work and a lot of good progress. And I think looking back on that can help me rebound, continue working on myself a little bit better. And it's still, at the end of the day, all momentum that I could use that to help think back and put in perspective that helps me, I guess, keep going.
So keeping a really broad perspective and thinking of things in terms of that you have the room to continue making mistakes and therefore there's no reason to not keep striving to improve yourself even if it might not immediately work out. You might stumble, it might be hard. You've got the space to do the work, so you might as well do it.
Absolutely. And I think also something that I took a little time to recognize, but it's the idea that like failure is a phenomenal teacher. I think it's probably one of the best teachers. It's realizing and recognizing what you can learn from failure and how you can adjust and the lessons that it'll teach you that you can then use to improve, do better the next go around. So even if, on your own personal mental journey, if you do slip up a little bit, there'll be teachable moments in that slip up or that failure that you can reflect on and use to bring back around and grow with.
For sure. Keeping in mind that no matter how far you fall, it only makes it that much more heroic when you climb back up and surpass where you ever were before.
Right on.
All right. So, Tommy, if we could talk a little bit about purpose and what it means to you. Now, purpose is this really broad idea of what it's all about, why you're here, why you're doing what you're doing. And it means something different to everyone. Through some of the conversations I've been having on the show, I'm starting to realize that different people give it different weights. And I'm very curious, is it something that's really important to you? Have you already found out your purpose? Is it something you're doing work in order to discover? Is it something you're cultivating? What does purpose mean to you at this point in your life? And what's your relationship with it?
Yeah, I think that's forever going to be my question. And the thing that I'm working towards is finding like the purpose that I think is worthwhile or the purpose that I think is set for my life. But I think as it stands right now, I'd say purpose is the thing that kind of gives you the most satisfaction in your life and something that helps you look back on yourself in a good way. It's if you are following this and if it's something that you can look back on proudly, then I'd say it's like a purpose. I wouldn't say there needs to be like one specific purpose. There's, I think, something that if you right now can look back and say that your life is something that you can be satisfied with and that you're proud of yourself, then you have a good purpose, right? But I think the bigger, grander purpose is something that I am going to be doing a lot of introspection on and a lot of thinking on for a long time to come to really figure out like what mine could be and really what could give my life the most fulfillment and satisfaction.
Very fair. And in a similar vein, it makes me curious. Would you say that you feel a calling to do something, to provide something, to show up in some way in life?
Yeah, I think I've always felt a calling to create something that resonates with a lot of people, whether that be doing things that people find entertaining or funny, or if I make something that really resonates with somebody, or if I do any sort of project that resonates with a lot of people. That's what I've been drawn towards all my life. But making or doing something, really creating something that resonates with a big amount of people is something that I personally feel I like have been pulled towards since a very young age.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I know for me, I think that creating something that a lot of people find useful and can get a lot of value out of, but also that just has a big impact has always been something that has really mattered to me. So I definitely relate to that. All right. We have now reached the part of the show that I like to fondly call counterspell, where we flip the tables a little bit and I open it up to you to bring up one subject, ask me one question, or just bring up something that you would like my take or opinion on. Any question that you have for me. What do you got for me?
I think I'd ask what is one method or philosophy that you believe is good for personal development?
I think the idea of being really intentional and learning how to do that in how you interact with other people. I think that it is very easy and comfortable to just fall into habits and patterns and ways of going about things. And that is one of these pitfalls where you can find yourself really unhappy in relationships. Oh, they're always mean whenever I bring up this, so I'm just never going to talk about it with them. Or I always get really triggered when someone brings this up, so I'm going to refuse to engage in it. Not just this like shutting off, but also like you can find yourself pushing away certain opportunities, this imposter syndrome you've talked about, like keeping an open mindset towards new experiences and not trying to game out how things are going to happen before they do to the point of missing out on things. I think those are two sides of this really being intentional about how you engage with people, staying present in the moment, being open to new experiences, and the idea that just because something has happened a certain way in the past doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to happen today. And that really is something that it's magic you make in your life actively, because if you go into a situation expecting to have a bad conversation with someone and you start that conversation in such a way where you're already dismissive or you're already combative with somebody that you might not get along with that well, or you've had some rough interactions with, where's the opportunity for a better interaction to happen? Where's the opportunity for you and that person to grow closer? So I think just really keeping yourself open and being intentional about how you show up, always trying to really present yourself in a way that serves you to maintain a positive outlook on things, even if things are going rough for you. And I know that's hard, but I would definitely say that it's worth it to try and treat everybody not just the way you want to be treated in the sense of like respect, but also in real kindness and curiosity and showing up in the world in a way where you're really engaging with people rather than them being the background to the tasks that you have to do. I think that a lot of people can be very dismissive of the people around them these days, especially if it's not someone you're really close to. And that's just pushing away potential friends and potential new experiences and interactions. So I would say really being intentional about how you show up and keeping an open mind that just because you've gone through similar days, today might not be like that. You might have always caught somebody on a bad day and today they're in a good mood. And if you walk up to them and give them the opportunity to surprise you, you might really be happy with the way that plays out. And I think that really just helps you to enjoy life a little bit more. I know you say like personal development. I hope that answers the question, but I would say
Mhm.
that is something I think is really important to be mindful of. And something that you've already talked a little bit about in a quite a bit about in a similar vein. This idea of trying to sculpt who you want to be in the world. Where do you see the overlaps in our philosophies there?
Yeah, honestly, I've resonated with basically all that you brought up there. I think one of my biggest day-to-day challenges and rooms for growth is what you exactly brought up, is getting into that routine headspace of thinking like, yeah, but what if this happens? It hasn't worked out before, so it's probably not going to work out now, or I'm nervous of this happening, so I'm just not going to do it. But recognizing and being intentional and then recognizing the potential for change and for growth and for positive results is so important. It's recognizing that it's probably not always going to be the way that you're thinking, or it's, not going to go the way that you're so worried about. Something that I definitely learned from of being an antisocial, not wanting to go out kind of kid is something my parents taught me of me being like, I don't want to go there. That's gonna be stupid. I'm gonna be dumb. And they're in them responding like, yeah, but you never know. What if you end up having a great time? What if you end up loving it? And a lot of the time I was like, sure, let's find out. And then I did end up having a great time and then loving it. And it was being intentional about going that really opened my eyes to the change of that. Yeah, I totally get what you're going with there.
You know, what's wild, I think it's so applicable just in our relationship. I would have never met you if I hadn't kept that mindset. When our mutual friend invited me to a party that you hosted and I first met you and really got into that friend group, I was really worried about just a bad interaction I had with someone that I knew ran in that friend group years and years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed back then. What if nobody wants to hang out with me? It's a big mistake to even go and foray into their friend group. And really just having this mindset of, I have a friend who's already in that group, and surely he wouldn't put me in a situation that would be bad for me. Just having some faith that things will probably work out and seeing where they go and keeping an open mindset. And years later, I've made so many wonderful friends, and it wasn't a big deal at all. I don't think the thing that I was worried about anyone even remembered. So always keeping that open and positive mindset's a really powerful tool to make friends, to show up in life, and to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's something that comes with worry and fear, especially me with tackling my own inner thoughts and my own personality, is that ever-present idea of the "but what if?" Right? It's the constant overwhelming idea of, yeah, this probably won't happen, but what if? It'll just domineer and overpower so much reason and so much thought. Historical examples, the idea of, yeah, this is never going to happen, though. It wouldn't happen. Yeah, but what if? And I think it's so easy for people with a similar personality or with similar mindset or at a similar low point to easily get swept up in that, but what if? But it's important to recognize that you got to work through that fear of, but what if, to really realize that it's going to be okay.
Really speaking on this idea of intention, while all of that's valid, to have fears that things aren't going to work out, but what if the worst thing possible happens? To counterbalance that, but what if something really wonderful happens? What if I'm totally surprised? What if something I could never see coming happens and instead of it going horribly, it goes wonderfully? There really is a large element of RNG, of randomness to life that I think we like to think we always know exactly what's going to happen. We're the full masters of our environment and our lives, but life will surprise you. I think that it's impossible to build a life where you don't find some surprise here and there. And it's just as likely to be good as it is bad. So it shouldn't be something that holds people back.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it.
All right, now we've reached the final section of the show called cheat codes. So, Tommy, if you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself right at the end of high school, transitioning into this more adult phase of life, if you could have a conversation with yourself then when you're trying to align where your life is going to go and really starting out on this journey of solidifying who you want to be, if you could give that version of yourself 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
Number one, drink more water. Just for the love of God, drink more water than you think you are. If you're thinking you're having enough, drink more. That'll always carry into just so many things of your life. So much of, why do I feel this way, or why is this happening? It all loops back around to drink more water. I'm still fighting with that, even actively right now. But I think the second one is understanding the fact that it's totally okay and there's nothing wrong and nothing wrong with you if the career that you end up in is not the one that you went to school for, and it's not the one that you originally set out to do. There's no failure in it. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not settling. It's not any less of you to recognize a path that provides you a lot more security, fundamental safety versus the one that you originally, dreamed for. And it took me so long to really come to terms with that because I was originally like, man, I'm not at what I wanted and set out to do, so that means I fucked up somewhere, or there's something wrong with me and I didn't chase my dream hard enough, or I didn't work at it enough. And I think there's still a bit of that in me that for a long time going to be working on and inwardly thinking about and wrestling with. But it's realizing that so many people are in jobs that they did not go to school for. If you're at a job and you ask people, oh, did you go to school for this? So many people will say, no, I did not. But this is where they are, right? Because they understand that, at the end of the day, if it's a job you like, and if it's a job you're cool doing, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that and allowing yourself room on the side to foster the things that give you joy. So that if you establish security and fundamental safety and allow yourself other liberty to grow on the side, that's completely fine. And I think the third piece of advice is the mantra that I've really used over the past year, the phrase of, it's not that deep, because if anybody listening is like me, where you're a pretty anxious person and find it pretty easy to lapse into those thoughts of, oh, but what if this is happening? What if it's going wrong? What if this is happening and all my worst fears are actually just that mantra of, it is not that deep. It's not that serious. It's not that dramatic. It's not that bad. It really helps to ground and take a second to get out of that headspace and just that quick mantra of just, it's not that deep. But what if it is not that deep? And that has helped me really avoid a lot of negative thoughts and a lot of spiraling and a lot of bad emotions. And it allowed them to pass by and not really stick to me.
Very wonderful and very tangible pieces of advice. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, this next question is, if someone younger than you is considering taking a similar path, would you recommend it? Could you start by answering that from a environmental science degree at college? These days, 2025, would you recommend that somebody go and study that at college from your experience?
100% yes. I think there absolutely is a need for the people out there who are going to buckle down and stick with it and do the work and the science to save our planet and do what needs to be done to pull us back from the brink. I'm thinking if you're wanting to get into it, 100% yes. Just know that it is incredibly gloomy in some portions. But yeah, I think there is absolutely a need for people who are passionate about it.
And what type of person would definitely find success on that path, in your opinion? And what are some signs that it might not be the right thing for them to go into professionally?
I think if you're in it for the money, like I was originally, because I was in it, for sure there was the passion of, yeah, I would like to help the planet and make sure that we're good in the future for future generations. But there's also the idea of, yeah, but if you're doing environmental consulting for a big company, that could potentially get you the paycheck. If you're going into it with that kind of mentality, that's not going to last. You're going to burn out. You're not going to stick with it long. You need to recognize that a lot of the work initially and fundamentally is going to be a bit thankless. It's going to be a bit not a heavy paycheck. It's going to be a lot of rolling around in fields, getting covered in ticks. But at the end of the day, it's for one of the most important causes. And I think if you're still there to put in the work for that cause that you believe in for helping our home, then for sure.
So, environmental science, in your view, hinges entirely on your motivations and whether or not you will find long lasting, fulfilling success in it. Now, if you could take this same framework and apply it to game design, studying game design in college, would you recommend it to people in 2025? And what type of person would find success? What are some indicators that maybe that's not the right path for someone to do professionally?
Yeah, especially in 2025. I know that there's probably so many people who want to get into game development and game design and that entire field. I was there. I was in it. I was one of those people, right? I absolutely was like, yeah, I love games. I want to be in the thick of it. I want to be involved with it. But building on my previous statement, but drastically more so for this point, is that you need to be totally okay with getting fired at any second. You need to be okay with a not good pay and a shitload of hours for a project that may potentially get scrapped on a dime. You kind of really need to be in it for the love of the game, pun intended. It's a very cutthroat environment. It's a very populated environment. There's a lot of people fighting for jobs at studios in the area and countrywide, and people clamoring for work and experience and that kind of thing. And there's very heavy thresholds to hit if you really want to make yourself stand out in the environment. I think the best advice I could give to anyone really trying to do well and excel is pick a niche and get super, super good at it. Because I tried to be a generalist, and you absolutely can. Maybe later on down the line, if you become generalized in a lot of skills, that's really good. But to really get in there and get that foothold that you want, become so good at something and go for those jobs. And if they realize that you're like the best in that, that'll help you stand out. But those are the kind of people I think can excel, the ones who are going to put in a bunch of work to excel at one thing and hold that mindset of, hey, I may have a job for a year. I may get canned right away. I may be making a project that gets absolutely scrapped and all my work goes down the drain, or I put in all of this work and time and passion for a product that gets absolutely dunked on, and then I get sent hate mail from people, because we know how gamers are. It absolutely could happen, but it may not be the best course of work for you if you're really in it for the big game studio paycheck, or you're not really down for getting potentially some negative feedback from a wide community.
Very fair, very well measured advice. And if you could apply this same framework to your time as a park ranger, if you could envision out towards having a full lifelong career in that, is that something that you would recommend someone set their sights on if they heard you talk about that work and were like, I could do that for the rest of my life? Do you think that is something that is an avenue to a really sustainable lifestyle? Would you be able to live a comfortable life on that path? And then what type of people, same sorts of thing, would find success, would not find success? What are some indicators?
I think you could if you really enjoyed it, if you're really loving the work and like the people and like the stuff you do, for sure. Personally, I did not see it to be that feasible for myself, but definitely the kind of people who love being out and doing that kind of work.
Would you say that's because of the pay or the physical demand on your body?
Both. It's having to work basically all day doing a lot of pretty demanding physical labor for, unfortunately, not a lot of recognition and not a lot of financial benefits.
Now, coming up to the job that you have right now, would you recommend that someone get into it? And what are some ways that someone could tell whether or not they could potentially be a good fit working in this niche of the medical industry?
Yeah, honestly, the medical industry, it's always going to be around. I think there's always going to be niches for you and there's always going to be opportunities for you in medical because as long as there's going to be people, there's going to be things wrong with our bodies and things that need to be tweaked and worked on. So there's always going to be stuff that has to get fixed or monitored or adjusted. So I think it's definitely something that's going to last. It's definitely something that can keep a lot of jobs open. But yeah, if you're the kind of person who's okay working in a pretty high stress environment, who's okay just like being on and public and being okay with scorching your social battery for the length of a day, then yeah, I absolutely think it's worth doing. It's important work. It's monitoring people's health and their hearts and making sure they're okay and monitoring their well-being and making sure they're getting the care they need and giving them a reassurance that like what they're doing is okay and that there's going to be a doctor who's going to be helping them out. That's kind of the main thing with this job, is offering a sense of peace and comfort that there's going to be a doctor there who's going to make sure they're okay. If you're the kind of person who likes that and wants to get that sort of reassurance of safety and care for people, then yeah, absolutely.
So, say that there's a young person listening to this who's trying to pick the direction of their life and they go, that sounds like the thing. If you were to go directly to this, would you recommend going to college for it? Would you recommend trying to go to certain events to meet certain types of people? Because not everybody's going to have someone with a direct connection to get them into the industry. What do you think is some advice for someone looking to get into a similar role as what you have now? What type of path should they be taking?
Yeah, sometimes the best path is the one that you never really expected. I think it's always keep your eyes open that, the path that is best for you is probably not the one that you expected. And that's okay to potentially go down that different path, that different route, that maybe if it's something you never really thought of before, something you never really put credence into, could potentially be a route that you love. So if potentially you're browsing around for jobs and you're like, no, that's not the one that I thought I could do, or no, I've never really thought about that one, probably no. It's probably good to maybe at least for a little bit, always keep your options open and then think about maybe if it's something that you've never really thought about before, maybe you could see yourself doing, that could potentially open up the avenue for a whole new passion and a whole new career that treats you really well.
I think that's very true. But if someone's trying to get into this career specifically, are there any events they should go to or just try and find a local practice? Do you reach out to doctors? Like, how do you think they could go about getting a similar job?
Yeah, hospitals and clinics always are okay with shadowing, or people who are like, yeah, I'm really thinking about it. Definitely email somebody around there and be like, hey, I would love just like a day of your time just to shadow and see what's going on because I'm interested in doing this for work and really explaining the situation. I definitely did that with similar medical things before I got this job. Keep my options open. I was considering career changes and career pivots, and I shadowed at some clinics and did some stuff. And I was like, hey, I know I haven't went to school for any of this or anything medical, but I would love to shadow and see how this works to potentially see if it's a path that I want to pursue. And so, yeah, ask around, ask the people there. Odds are they're probably very nice and they're probably very open to having you come around and checking it out. But job boards are always there. The online ones, Indeed, LinkedIn, they're always going to be around. Definitely look into like other job boards that you wouldn't really expect, and always kind of look around for avenues to explore jobs and ways in to really get that experience or that look into a career that you never really expected.
Great. Thank you so much, Tommy. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I really wish you a lot of success and good health and a very fulfilling time in this path you're on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I wish all the best to you too. Anyone listening, wish the best for you. And yeah, thanks
It,
for having me around.
it was fun. And I'll do a little outro. Be good to go.
Do you hear that? It's the call of the tavern.
If you enjoy this show and want to join a community that supports one another, you should click the link in the description to join the GG Tavern Discord. We're going to be hosting game nights, networking events, and community discussion boards there. It's also the best place to stay up to date with everything going on with GGUP. There's currently a special promotion going on called the Founders Event. The first 100 people who get 5 of their friends to subscribe to the podcast and DM me proof will gain lifetime access to a special role in the Discord server where you can enjoy some of the special perks that will otherwise only be for paid supporters of the channel. Also, the first 500 people to join the server can claim the OG title for eternal bragging rights that you were an early adopter of the show. Come on into the tavern and connect with the community today.